Or RHOBH Teddi Mellencamp reveals hurtful deleted scene. When it comes to filming RHOBH, there's always going to be scenes that producers cut from episodes to save time. Teddi Mellencamp just revealed that there was a certain scene with her husband, Edwin Arroyav, that was deleted. According to the housewife, it was a traumatic moment she'll never forget. Read on to find out what happened. Teddi Mellencamp hates this deleted scene. Teddi recently revealed that there was a scene with her partner Edwin that she is so glad never made it on air. The scene started off with the two discussing whether or not they wanted to have more children. It was during the conversation that Arroyav asked her if she would be okay being pregnant because that would make her big. This was triggering for Teddi, and she wasted no time letting her husband know that this weight comment was offensive. "I am disgusted that you said that. I'm furious that you said that. You embarrassed me, you hurt me," she yelled at Edwin. Mellencamp didn't reveal what season this scene was supposed to be included in. If it had aired, it would have raised hairs toward Edwin for his weight comment and Teddi for her screaming behavior. Their roller coaster relationship. This unaired conversation isn't the first time that Teddi and Edwin had a falling out. Throughout their 13-year marriage, the two have gone through some ups and downs. In fact, Teddi revealed last year that it was during their first season of RHOBH that they almost got divorced. Mellencamp explained that it didn't have anything to do with the reality TV show, and more so about their personal lives. She was used to being the sole financial provider of herself, following her divorce from Matt Robertson in 2009. The housewife had a hard time adapting to Edwin being in charge of their monetary decisions. Eventually, she learned to allow her husband to have more of a say in their household and be equals in their relationship. The happy couple have gone on to have 3 kids and seem to have a good grasp on their roles. Do RHOBH fans like Teddi? Just because the scene where she screamed at her husband didn't air, doesn't mean that all of Teddi's on-screen moments have painted her in a good light. Most viewers have consistently agreed that throughout the seasons, Mellencamp is not one of their favorite cast members. In a Reddit thread, fans shared their distaste for the reality TV star. Here are a few of the comments. "I rank her as the worst housewife ever. It's wild how progressively annoying she is. She is so dull." Teddi Mellencamp sat on her beige sectional, her legs curled up beneath her, the flicker of candlelight reflecting off the coffee table. She had done her best to avoid rehashing old wounds, but this was different. This was a deleted scene, an unspoken truth that had resurfaced, clawing at her like a ghost she thought she'd banished. The producers had decided to keep it off air, but now, with her podcast gaining traction and the fans' curiosity peaking, Teddi decided it was time to reveal what had happened that day. She took a deep breath, pressing record on her phone. The podcast mic sat on a small stand in front of her, its red light blinking reassuringly. "Okay," she began, her voice steady but her heart pounding. "So I've been debating whether to talk about this for a while. It's something that's bothered me for years, but I didn't want to dredge up drama. However, I think it's important to set the record straight." She leaned back against the plush cushions, her mind racing back to that fateful day in Kyle Richards' backyard. It had been one of those glamorous RHOBH gatherings, complete with cascading floral arrangements, gourmet hors d'oeuvres, and a pool that sparkled under the California sun. The women had gathered for what was supposed to be a light-hearted afternoon, champagne flutes clinking, laughter floating through the air. But as anyone familiar with the group knew, tensions often simmered beneath the surface. It was during one of Kyle's events, Teddi explained. "I won't get into every detail of what led up to it, but things were already tense between Dorit and me. And then it happened." Teddi's memory replayed the scene in vivid detail. Dorit Kemsley, impeccably dressed in a flowing Gucci jumpsuit, had sauntered over to her with that air of effortless confidence she always seemed to exude. They'd exchanged pleasantries, but it wasn't long before the conversation turned pointed. Dorit had brought up Teddy's accountability program, hinting, no, outright stating, that it seemed controlling and unrealistic. She said something like, "Teddy, darling, not everyone wants to live on chicken and broccoli. Some of us actually enjoy life." Teddy's voice carried a bitter edge as she repeated the words. It wasn't just what she said, though. It was the tone, the smirk, the way she looked around to make sure everyone else was listening. Kyle had tried to mediate, stepping between them with her signature blend of charm and diplomacy, but the damage was done. The group had splintered, some siding with Teddy, others with Dorit. Yet the moment that stung the most hadn't even made it to air. What the cameras didn't show, Teddi continued, her voice faltering slightly, was what Dorit said after the argument. When most of the group had wandered off, she leaned in close and said, "No one here actually likes you, Teddi. You're just Kyle's little sidekick." The words hung heavy in the air, even now, years later. Teddy's eyes glistened as she recounted the moment. "I remember standing there, completely frozen. It was like all my insecurities came rushing to the surface. I've always been aware of this sidekick narrative, but hearing her say it out loud, it felt like a punch to the gut." She paused the recording for a moment, collecting herself. The memory still hurt, but there was a strange sense of relief in finally sharing it. When she resumed, her tone was firmer, more resolute. "I'm not telling this story to villainize Dorit," Teddi clarified. "We've both moved on, and I think we've grown a lot since then. But I do think it's important to acknowledge how these little comments, the ones that don't make the final cut, can leave a lasting impact. The show captures a lot, but it doesn't always capture the full story." As Teddi spoke, she could almost hear the responses forming in her listeners' minds. Some would empathize, others would accuse her of playing the victim, but she had made peace with that. Her goal wasn't to win people over. It was to reclaim her narrative. "One thing I've learned," she added, her voice softening, "is that we're all so much more than the labels people give us. For years, I let the sidekick label define me, but I'm done with that. I'm not just Kyle's friend or the accountability coach. I'm a mom, a wife, a businesswoman. I'm me." The podcast episode ended with a heartfelt message to her listeners. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's that your worth isn't defined by someone else's opinion. Whether you're on a reality show or just trying to make it through the day, remember that you are enough. After hitting stop on the recording, Teddi leaned back and exhaled deeply. The scene she'd recounted no longer felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. Instead, it felt like a chapter she'd finally closed. She didn't need validation from Dorit, the other housewives, or even the viewers. For the first time in a long time, she felt at peace with herself. The response to the podcast episode was immediate. Social media buzzed with hashtags like #TeamTeddi and #RHOBH drama, fans debating the dynamics of the group and re-examining old episodes for clues. Dorit, for her part, remained silent, at least publicly. Privately, Teddi hoped they could find a way to clear the air, but she wasn't counting on it. Some wounds healed naturally, others required distance and time. As Teddi closed her laptop and blew out the candles, she felt a newfound sense of clarity. The deleted scene might never air, but sharing her truth had given her a voice she hadn't realized she'd been missing. And for Teddi Mellencamp, that was enough.